one thing that we don't see too much of is work being done at the practical level on the impacts. This is not for want of trying by the state agencies, but they're rather strapped with resources to do that. Federal level, the Commonwealth Department of Climate Change is funding climate change research. That's mostly atmospheric and ocean type research to work out whether it's ever going to rain again, or how much and how hard the wind will blow. So they're looking at the climate itself. They're also now moving to another phase where they're funding adaptation. This is sort of the technological side. For instance, of biodiversity, how do we rewire wombats so that they can put up with more heat? There's a big disconnect, however, in terms of impacts. The feds haven't got around to talking about that, except in relation to a few sort of trial case studies, which is where the state is at as well. And so it's sort of the missing link in all of this. So with the impacts, we need to know what they are, where they will occur, when it's going to occur, and this is politically one of the difficult things, because, well, there are impacts occurring already, but these are hazards that have occurred historically anyway, and we expect those to be the first things to be amplified through the effects of climate change. And of course the big one is how much will it cost. Having talked to David James at length over the last few months from time to time, this is the sort of thing that exercises the mind of local government. Should exercise everybody's minds, but in this respect I must point out local government's much maligned by the other levels of government as being not completely on the ball, but it's my observation in working in this area that since they're at the sharp end, they have to make decisions on a day-by-day basis. They have to submit LEPs to be approved or otherwise. They're the ones who are really asking the right questions, and one of these questions is how much will it cost? So in terms of what are the impacts, I'm not going to really tell you because there are a lot of them. We could be here forever. So I suggest, I was sort of hoping that Jeff Withercombe would be talking. His list is always longer than everybody else's, so keep your eyes peeled. If you see any sort of talk coming up or conference that Jeff's talking at, make sure you're there. You'll find out every one of them, at least most of them. Maybe some he's left off the list or we haven't thought of yet. Jeff works with the the Coastal Councils group, the syndicate of local government in the Sydney region. It's a pooling of resources. Local government is the least well resourced of all the levels of government, but this is one model for the future all around Australia to have a sort of sharing of the available expertise, because there ain't much of it even nationally. We all know each other. It's quite incestuous. Half of Australia's talent's in this room, so let's hope it stays safe for the next few hours. So here's an example of what these sorts of investigations will involve to work out what the impacts are or will be and what they'll cost. This is just one little project that one of my master's students has worked through. I think it's quite nice. It's really top down. One of the things that really is missing is undertaking a national audit of whether the country is facing a future where the impacts of climate change are bigger than its GNP, or if we can easily afford it. So the challenge there is to do all of Australia, or at least all of Southeast Australia, as Jeroen, my student, has done. So in this example, we asked the question, what will it cost to protect the beaches that protect properties? Because that's the main function of beaches. It's not just to sit on and earn tourist revenue, but it's actually it's the first line of defence, the main line of defence for a lot of infrastructure and property. So Jeroen did this for all of Southeast Australia, and this is how he went about it. What we're talking about here, and he's doing it in various time slices, but I'm only presenting it for 2100. This is used commonly as a benchmark time in planning, but it's largely driven by things like flood statistics, which aren't exactly relevant here, but also turns out to be the time when climatologists say CO2, depending on what we do about curbing our emissions, are roughly double compared to pre-industrial time. So it is a benchmark. So the liability we speak of here is a bit like the liability with superannuation 15 years ago. You know, there's this talk of unfunded future liability. So how are we going to save so that we have the money available when we get to it? Well, it's a long way away. And it's sort of like, I suppose, a lot of people think of future generations a bit like Africans. We'd like to help them if we could, but we've got to worry about ourselves right now. So it's one of the low priority areas, of course, for any society, worrying too much about our children and our children's children. So in this particular analysis, we also assume something that's unreal at the moment, that there is offshore sand for extraction to use to nourish, add sand to the beaches, to protect them against the effects of sea level rise. And in fact, that's something that can be done practically and effectively, and it's actually the cheapest way. Some people advocate building walls, but the engineers say, well, they cost a lot more money to do in the first place, and they're not maintenance free, so they're all over expensive. So in doing this, there is